Brothers, sisters, I have been remiss in the recent days. Now, my videos have covered many spiritual topics and rituals and things like that, but I want to speak on something that is very down to earth, something that I have much experience with, and that is despair, specifically using your despair. Now, I will discuss the clip that I just showed in just a second, but let us work our way there. There is a large spectrum of experience between noticing a lack and manifesting the solution. A vast landscape where we live most of our lives between hope's oasis of actualization. Hope is all we have to drink in the desert of despair. Now, hope itself is what feeds our actualization of the future. Now, our future goals, our future realization of what we are hoping for. Now, when we hope something, when we truly desire it, we work towards it in this universe. And the universe responds. This isn't so much dharma or karma that I'm speaking of, though that is a very big part of it. What I'm speaking of is the real need an individual has in their lives that they work towards and manifest it themselves. You need that intimate desire, and I find that the universe, even if nothing supernatural exists, though I do believe in dharma and karma and the gods, even if nothing supernatural exists, there is a relationship of cause and effect with a sentient being's goal, and him or her trying to achieve that goal, trying to work towards that goal. We just have to want it hard enough and be patient long enough and work towards it steadily in order to actualize the goal of our hopes hold. The goals our hopes hold. And here we come to the realization that around most of these actualizations, there is this vast wasteland in which all we have to drink is hope. There's this vast wasteland where there is no actualization. There's only working towards actualization of what we hope to attain, whether it be love, whether it be success, whether it be proficiency in a job or a skill or having a family or achieving enlightenment. This wasteland of actualization is just the middleman, the intermediary between original understanding of a lack in our lives, a spiritual lack, a lack that is deep within our being. Now, most of the desires that we have end up being something we're not really intent on actualizing, that we're not really trying to actualize because we don't actually need their fruition. We don't actually need them to come about. But if we as an individual deep down know, feel, and understand we need friends, we need a family, we need to help the world in this way, we need to gain even money, and I'm talking about a very gray area here. If deep down we want to experience something, we want to be a part of something, that is when our hopes become a very large flask in the desert. Now, our hope becomes very intense only when deep down we know we truly and want this in our lives and must actualize it. Now, there's a lot of talk online and in life of when you truly want something, you gain it. But what I'm talking about here is perhaps more deep. I'm talking about the subconscious urge to become the person you know you must become. Now, figuring out what your subconscious, what your deeper nature, the essence of that deeper nature is difficult. We have to truly understand ourselves. We have to get to know ourselves. We have to get to know the world itself to try and figure out what it can give us that we truly need. Analyzing ourselves first, and then analyzing the world being far easier to do than analyzing ourselves. But truly analyzing ourselves, looking at the motivations for the goals that we have, the motivations that either are given to us or ones that we actually piece together through experiences in this world, the latter being the most appropriate for a large amount of hope and greater success of actualization. Now, let's go back to the clip I just showed of Bane talking to Batman in the pit. Once again, I do not own the rights to this movie. I do not own in any way anything in the clip that I showed. But let us analyze this, because Bane and Batman are a wonderful dichotomy of two different kinds of people. Now, is Bane correct? Is despair increased by hope? Yes. Despair can be increased by hope. I mean, it almost always is, if the hope is little. If we truly do not know ourselves or what we want, and we will not have enough hope to go across this wasteland of despair, to reach the other side and reach actualization, to bring about the goal that we truly want. That's why we must know ourselves ahead of time. That's why we must analyze what we truly want. Otherwise, our hope will not be intense enough. We will most certainly have to cross this wasteland of little nutrition, of little sustenance between where we are now and what we want. But our ability to do so will be greatly increased by understanding the depth of our motivations, by understanding the depth of our desires. Now, if you don't desire something that is beyond material, if you just desire material, it is very, very unlikely that you'll get to a satisfactory conclusion that this material will give you anything, because material rarely satisfies your hopes and your goals in the end. It's just a temporary satisfaction, because something that is material, once we reach it, we desire more material. Once we reach a certain level that we have been shooting for, the next obvious step is a greater amount. Now, for spirituality, this is good. Okay, we reached a point where we're free from this desire, we're free from this fear. But if it's material, then you're just gaining more and more, and you'll never be free from the desire of material. And you'll never truly see your gilded cage around you. You'll just keep on laying more and more gold on the bars. Now, as I said, there's a difference between Bane and Batman. So let's talk about that. Terrible people die in the landscape of despair before they reach the oasis of actualization. Now, Bane and Batman have both been through terrible things. Bane was thrown into a pit, and when he truly, a prison, a pit, and one that he was never meant to get out of. In a way, he never did. He chose to save this little girl, couldn't save her mother, that was also put into this prison pit thing. And he helped her start to climb out of the pit, out of this jail. That's kind of this well shape, this huge well shape, to where you can technically climb out, but very few people can, because either they're not light enough, or they just can't climb well enough, or they just don't really have the energy to do so. It's really hard to get out of this pit, prison type of thing. Now he helps this little girl up, and then all the other prisoners basically mangle him, basically destroy his face and really beat him up. In a way, after that, all the suffering that he went through after that, all the pain that he constantly felt, that's what he allowed to kill him. Now, originally he was a great person. He wanted to help this little girl try to get up, and she did. But he did not have enough hope through understanding of himself to survive the mangling and the pain before he was supposedly freed from the pit, but really he wasn't free. He really died in that pit. As he says later on in the movie, I never escaped. I never escaped that pit. And there are people in this world that never escape the pit, never escape this landscape, this desert, as I'm using it in my analogy. They start to tear apart their compassion, their love, their humanity, because it's easier. It's easier to die in that way than to constantly feel the pain and constantly not understand the amount of hope that they need, because they don't understand what they really want. And then so it's easier to become numb. It's easier to become detached. And then you start to want other things. You start to not want what you truly subconsciously, spiritually want. You start to want revenge. You start to want ever greater numbness. You start to identify with different ideologies that are very extreme, very individualistic towards the negative, and very focused on a dog-eat-dog world, living by the law of the jungle, as Hindus say. And those who live by the law of the jungle inevitably die by the law of the jungle. So if you want to die in a better way, if you want to kill your ego in another way, instead of numbing, instead of destroying your humanity, killing your ego in another way is living by higher dharmic laws, living by higher moral laws that say, okay, I will sacrifice myself for others. I will destroy that piece of myself that held me back before I reach the oasis. A part of us, in a way, has to die. The ego has to die. But the majority of us can be saved through the destruction of that part of us that wants to die in the desert, leaving that part of us in the desert, this wasteland of despair, and moving forward with the idea that to help other people is to help oneself. To help other people is the goal in life, and this is where we reach Batman. Batman capitalized on his despair. He did not let it completely shape who he was in the desert wasteland of despair. Batman chose, or had the strength to choose, that he went through all this pain and he doesn't want other people to go through it. So he can be described in this allegory as the one who brings water from the oasis and brings it to people in the desert and helps them on their way towards the oasis of hope's actualization. The actualization of everything anybody truly wants. And that is to identify with one's true self. You can call it the soul. You can call it Brahman. You can call it the one. You can call it the folk spirit. You can call it the spirit. I think of spirit as life force, but regardless, no matter what you call it, the best people will reach that oasis and help others and come back with nourishment for their hope, replenishment of their hope, and allow others to follow them towards the oasis because they know where it is. This is my hopes for myself in this life, to guide people to the oasis, because there's a degree of actualization that I've achieved, so maybe I've found a small oasis, but I want to lead everybody who can drink from a vast oasis to that oasis of actualization of who everyone truly is. And together we will find that oneness. We will seek freedom through compassion, through the unification of us all, and we will find that we rise together, or we fall as individuals. This is my hope for this world, that I will be one of the people. There are very many. I'm not special in this regard. I want to be one of those people that bring people to the vast oasis to where we can all drink from. The actualization of who we truly are. And everything, to me, is a part of God. That's who we truly are. That's who we've always been. And this separation, the idea of individuality, the chaos, the obsession with, okay, well, I'm going to be the predator, and if I'm not the predator, then somebody will eat me. The law of the jungle, that obsession will wane as we start to realize the advantages of being together, regardless of creed, regardless of religion, regardless of skin color, regardless of ethnicity or culture, or even political ideology. Once we realize that to work together, even in a loose partnership with everybody around the world, that is what will lead us to a sustainable, progressive humanity, one that keeps on moving forward, regardless of the obstacles. We may even conquer death itself. We may even conquer hatred itself. Not forcing this onto anybody, mind you, but we may all eventually reach consensus that this is the way we want to live. And the people who don't, shouldn't be forced to live for other people, with other people, and to other people's benefit. Let them live as they wish. But eventually, all of humanity will be convinced by the united soul that we share, the human soul. And the human soul that all of humanity shares is God. Everything is a part of God. It's the material, the dust that we must shake off, that makes us seem separate. Shake off your sand, empty it out of your boots, shake off your dust, these desires and fears that hold us back. Shake off these reckless thoughts of, okay, this person wronged me, then that means they're terrible and I need to combat them. Shake that off, brush it off. Okay, somebody wronged me, but I want justice. I want to have my rightful justice because they harmed me. Shake it off. Get to a place where they can't harm you, of course, but do not allow those who try to hold you back in the jungle, to hold you back in the landscape of despair. I'm mixing analogies here, to define your life. Do not let those who defeated themselves in the desert and accepted it as the only reality, that there is no refreshment, there is no actualization. Do not allow them to force their code upon you. Have a greater code. Find your inner code, and you will find your sentence increases to a paragraph and increases to a connection to the grander story. Thank you very much for watching. Never forget to use your despair. Using your despair will aid you in the desert of life, and you will reach that oasis. Thank you very much for watching, and all of you, have a great day.